Two quarterbacks we were not high on preseason both had awesome week twos in the ACC. Do we owe apologies to Cade Klubnik and Kyle McCord?
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football Head Coach, a brand new mobile game that's completely free, has no ads, and 100% playable offline. Begin your coaching legacy today. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. On this episode, we will discuss whether after, bumpy week ones in the case of the Hokies and week two in the case of the Wolfpack, if Virginia Tech and NC State are still to be considered contenders in the ACC. We got to talk about some of these ACC quarterbacks because, guys, we didn't think were legit, including Kyle McCord, maybe are legit. And with that, we're going to break down our winners and losers of week two in the Atlantic Coast Conference. But Kenton, let me take your temperature on Kyle McCord, quarterback at Syracuse. You and I were, and we weren't the only ones, not high on him, transferring from Ohio State where he was carried to Syracuse where he would have to do a little bit more carrying. But Kyle McCord, 2 weeks into the season, leads all of college football in touchdown passes with 8. Were we wrong about McCord?
I think it is so interesting. I am thoroughly enjoying all of the victory lapping about Kyle McCord. After 2 weeks, there are, in fact, 10 more games to play. And let me make this clear. This is not to castigate him. This is not to say he's a terrible player. I will wholeheartedly admit he has looked better in these 2 weeks than I expected. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. My temperature on him, top 5 quarterback in the ACC. But the amount of victory lapping I have seen, this man, they're talking like they done beat Georgia and Bama in the first 2 games. What is this? More power to him. I'm not going to knock him down. Again, he's exceeded my expectations. I will admit, so far I have been very wrong. At least with Tyler Shuck, I said when Tyler's healthy, he's good. I don't care if you put Kyle McCord on the field 100% healthy with 3 first-round wide receivers, he's not going to look good because we saw it. But Kyle McCord has progressed stellarly. He is looking like one of the best first-year transfer quarterbacks that we maybe have ever seen, but that is through 2 games. I want to give you an anecdote about why that's important. GameStop stock price is why I look at Kyle McCord and I'm like, I'm not really ready to jump out the window here. On May 1st, it was $10.91 a share, and then May 14th, it was up to $50.
So Kyle McCord is a stunk?
I'm just saying. Here's what I'm saying. Sometimes things come together in perfect conditions to make you look good. That's possible. I'm not saying that he is that. I'm not saying, hey, he will not do this against legitimate defensive backs and all that. I know Syracuse fans they've been waiting to jump me. I know Jackson has, and by the way, Jackson Hosier does an amazing job on Locked On Syracuse because I've never seen Syracuse fans mobilize in the way that they have been. And they've been on my head, rightfully so, and I've admitted I'm wrong about Kyle McCord, but it's through 2 games. It is much too early for me to jump on or off anybody's bandwagon. It's much too early. Unless I see a complete disaster class, I'm not jumping off your bandwagon. And unless I see absolute master classes against excellent defenses, I'm not jumping on anybody's bandwagon. So, I look at this and I'm like, hey, more power to you. He's played phenomenally. Kyle McCord is looking like a top 3 to 5 quarterback in the ACC.
So McCord in that win against Georgia Tech and Syracuse, to me, this was one of the biggest winners in the ACC over the weekend. Absolutely. They get their first conference win in their first conference game. They beat a team that they were actually underdogs against at home. Their quarterback is performing very well. McCord, 381 passing yards, 4 touchdowns. It's nice to see Arondé Gadsden healthy again. He was injured most of last year. 2 touchdowns scored for OG, 6 receptions, 93 yards. That was a big game for him. McCord was named co-ACC quarterback of the week, along with another guy that you and I were pretty hard on. And you know what? I'm actually more sold on McCord than I am on Cade Klubnik. But Cade Klubnik in Clemson, 66-20 thrashing against App State. Klubnik threw for 378 yards and 5 touchdowns. And you felt like that Clemson made an effort, like, really to run it up, just to kind of show, hey guys, like, don't judge us by what our offense looked like against Georgia. Judge us on this performance instead. They were running it up. And listen, there's nothing wrong with it, Kenton. Like I always say, if you want to stop them from scoring, play some defense. Like they, I think they should have taken their feet off the gas or anything like that. But Clemson made a point to shine on offense in that game.
I am not ready to jump on Cade Klubnik's bandwagon at all.
Neither am I. Yeah.
You're not going to convince me. I get it. App State is the legend slayer. They are the Goliath slayer. They're the big name killer. They're the big game hunter. That's App State. They're still App State. If App State was not App State, it wouldn't have been a big deal when they beat Michigan. If App State was not App State, it would not be a big deal when they beat Power 4 teams. That's just a fact. So, you beat App State by a lot. Boogity boogity. Oh, I now believe. Get that nonsense out of here. Again, these 2 quarterbacks, one of them has looked good both games during the season. One of them has looked good through one. I'm not sold on either one of these guys to say 100%, hey, these 2, they're going to be Conference Player of the Year race. It's Klubnik. There's McCord, Klubnik, McCord. No, I'm not doing it. Not, these 2 had good games. More power to them. But I will say this. There have been such disaster classes by all the other players who were supposed to be in contention. We actually may be looking at a situation where those 2 are legitimate threats in the race, which would just be a very interesting sight to see, given what we thought on the offseason. And there would be a lot of folks eating humble pie, starting with me. If I could get mine with a scoop of whipped cream and some sprinkles on top, that'd be excellent.
It's been a wild year. Let's take a look at other winners from week 2 inside the ACC. You did have some ACC teams taking on lesser competition. Number 12, well, actually now number 10, Miami beat Florida A&M 56-9. Cam Ward, who won ACC Quarterback of the Week, week 1. In week 2, he throws for 304 yards, 3 touchdowns. He actually becomes the first Miami quarterback to debut with consecutive games with at least 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's already made Miami history. Obviously, you expected him to look good against FAMU. He looked good against Florida, though, week 1 as well. Another quarterback who looked good, Tyler Shuck with Louisville. Louisville beat Jacksonville State 49-14. Shuck with 349 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. So, well, I guess we can stop there, Kenton, because a couple teams, and again, like the competition's going to get greater for both of them as they hit their conference schedules. But 2 teams in the ACC who have not disappointed to this point, who were near the top of the projections, are Miami and Louisville. And like you said, with Tyler Shuck, when he's healthy, he's good.
Yeah, and I'm not going to lie. I started off very anti-Tyler Shuck. I went back, watched some film, changed my opinion. I'm not a guy who's ashamed to admit when I get new information, there is another fighter in the arena, or maybe I had wrongly considered this. And I toward the end of the summer, I started to see, okay, I get it. If he's healthy, Louisville has a shot. And Tyler Shuck has looked phenomenal so far. We all know that the Brahms, when you see that last name Brahm, there will be a quarterback who is whispered to. That is just a part and parcel of the last name Brahm. They know how to coach him up better than anybody, and they're looking phenomenal. We knew that defense was going to be good. We knew that front was going to be scary. And so when you look at this Louisville team and what they've done so far, they have done a little bit more than held serve, because they were, they're not necessarily playing world beaters here, but they're dominating. They're not giving guys air to breathe, which you should do against lesser opponents, which multiple teams have shown us this year is a little bit more difficult than we think.
Well, we got more winners we're going to discuss on the other side, including a quarterback in Pittsburgh who I didn't think was going to be the starter there before the season began. And all he's done is take home ACC Rookie of the Week honors in each of the first 2 weeks of the year. Pittsburgh got a big win. Virginia got a big come from behind win. And we'll talk about the losers as well. So we're only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. And I already know you're keeping it locked to Ultimate College Football HC. I have become addicted to this mobile game because I get to put myself in the shoes of the head coach of my favorite team. Guys, I think you're going to love this game as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the coach of your favorite ACC team? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, it's going to shape the future and legacy of your program. I feel like I'm a little too conservative calling plays. Maybe you guys could do better. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want to and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On ACC fans. Use the promo code Locked On CFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. I know Kenton and Grayson had a lot to say about that Wolfpack loss to Tennessee. Sorry that you had to relive that a couple of times. Kenton hosts Locked On Wolfpack. I host Locked On Canes. So we'll see you guys there as well. Make sure you make those shows your next listen. So, going to other winners in the conference, Kenton. Pitt. They rally to beat Cincinnati. Big win for Pittsburgh on the road. And Eli Holstein, 302 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 consecutive weeks. He's named ACC Rookie of the Week. You know, going back even a month and a half ago, ACC Media Days, Nate Yarnell was the guy, the quarterback that Pittsburgh sent to talk to the media. Holstein ends up taking that job, and he has run with the opportunity.
You know, I've got to give Pitt their love because, again, they've shown up and showed out and done what they're supposed to do. And we're in that part of the season. We're in that part of the season where it's, you know, teams are starting to sell you. They're starting to show you who they are a little bit, but there's also a little fool's gold in there. There's also a little bit of fool's gold. But the interesting thing is, I'm not sure if Holstein is selling us fool's gold. I'm not sure. Because that Pitt offense as a whole, they look so damn physical. The tight end can block. The offensive line is always there. You know, Pitt takes on the attitude and temperament of Narduzzi. But I'll tell you what, that offensive coordinator from Western Carolina, you know, this is the exact opposite of the Iowa situation. You know how Ferentz had to let his son go. The son at Western Carolina was so good. He said, "Dad, I'm moving on to bigger and better things, baby. I got to go. I got to go." The SoCon is nice, but the ACC check, it hits differently, you know. So they have come together and they have come out in surprise so far. And I'll tell you this, much like my feelings about Kyle McCord, I feel the same way about Pitt. I did not believe. They are making me a believer. They are making me a believer. I'm not ready to jump on the Panther bandwagon. Y'all know I love me some Narduzzi. That's my guy. But I'm not ready to jump on the bandwagon just yet, because I don't know who Cincinnati is yet, but I want to see what this team looks like going forward, because this could be one of those teams that, you know, every now and then in the ACC, we just have a moment, a team where they're supposed to be nothing. They're supposed to be bad. They're supposed to be terrible. And then all of a sudden, ooga booga, 8-win season. Oh, we're right on knocking on the door of getting into the ACC championship. So I think it's very interesting to see that Pitt has looked good so far.
And Pitt, they've got the backyard brawl coming up against West Virginia. They're 2.5-point underdogs at home. I mean, if they beat Cincinnati and West Virginia in back-to-back weeks, just crown them Big 12 champions. If they can't win the ACC, maybe they win the Big 12.
And we're going to have Drake Toll on this show to tell him you talked all summer about which team from the ACC need to come over there. And lo and behold, the mighty Pitt Panthers are your conference champion. How's it feel, Drake? How does it feel, Drake Kamaru Toll?
All right, so going back to the winners. Now, we devoted an entire segment to talk about Cal's upset at Auburn, so I don't feel like we need to go into a whole thing on that. It was magnificent. I saw our guy, Lawrence Ross, Cal superfan. He turned up in our episode comments yesterday. We got to bring Lawrence back on because that was a magnificent win. And actually, we had a lot of Cal fans watching and listening to our last episode. Like, they reminded us, like, Cal can be season wreckers for big teams. Like, they play up and down to the competition. So, if you have ambitions for a big season, you go up against Cal, you better watch out. So other winners, Boston College, they're now ranked. They took care of business against FCS Duquesne, 56-0. North Carolina beat Charlotte 38-20. Virginia Tech, they got in the win column 31-14 against Marshall. Stanford 41-7 against Cal Poly. And by the way, this game, I didn't watch it live over the weekend. Virginia's 31-30 win against Wake Forest. I watched it replay Monday night on ACC Network. That was a thriller. Tony Calandria, great game. And Virginia, they were down 17-3 in that game, and they I was early in the game, like, wow, Wake Forest looks great. They had a big goal line stand early on. Like, I thought Virginia's goose was cooked. I watched the game 2 days later, not realizing what the final score would be, and that was a big win for Virginia. I give them their due.
You got the full Tony Calandria experience.
Yeah.
You got the moments where you're like, Tony, what are you doing? Just throw it away. But you also had that moment where you're like, no, Tony. Yes, Tony. Yes, we love it. We love you, Tony. We ain't never seen another quarterback like you, because that's who Tony Calandria is. And I'm telling you, I think when we get to see Tony Calandria as a senior, if he sticks around at UVA, the ACC could be in trouble. The ACC could be in serious trouble. With all due respect to Tony Elliott, I think they'll have a better coach then. And I'm going to tell you, him with a couple more years under his belt, with a supporting cast that, Virginia is a hotbed of football talent. If you can find a way to kind of win some of those recruiting battles against not only Virginia Tech, but against the really, really big names of the world that are coming in and poaching all of your top players, you will have a senior Tony Calandria that could potentially take away the no Tony plays. Combine that with some good young talent, man, they could be special. But for right now, pulling off that type of upset, or not upset, that type of comeback against Wake Forest, that is, that's something special.
And there were almost 800 combined passing yards in that game, because Calandria threw for like 357, and then Bachmeier on the other side threw for over 400. So there was not a whole lot of defense, I guess, being played in that one. All right, so let's take a look at the losers here, Kenton. And I think only 4 ACC teams lost games over the weekend. SMU fell to BYU. This was back on Friday night, 18-15. That was a disappointment. SMU were home favorites by more than a touchdown against BYU. 24th ranked NC State lost to 14th ranked Tennessee. They both, NC State fell out of the rankings. Tennessee has moved into the top 10 now, 51-10. The Volunteers won that game. Obviously, with Syracuse winning a conference game, you had Georgia Tech on the losing end of that one, 31-28. And we had, obviously, Wake Forest losing to Virginia. So out of those ACC losers, I think I might know where you're going to go with this one. Who was the biggest loser in week 2?
The loser that lost on national TV. I mean, there was only one loser.
Yeah.
There was only one loser that the whole nation got to see you get tarred and feathered, baby.
Ugh.
Got the wheels whooped off of you. And I if I'm Tom Lavosi, he's the guy who does a lot with NC State's NIL. If I'm Dave Dorn, I'm checking to see if I got a receipt, because I believe that there's still a warranty policy out on Grayson McCall, and you should be able to return them. Hey, This was broken. This was broken. That young man has thrown 2 interceptions, and I thought that they were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Dono, I was wrong. Well, actually, they are technically still both within 5 because one of them was about 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. The other, the intended receiver was behind the line of scrimmage, and you miss him wide by about 2-3 yards.
Oh, it's not good.
An offensive line that can not get pushed. You know, that vaunted Tennessee defensive line, you and I talked about it. They're deep, they're talented, they're athletic, they're fast, they're physical. You know, it's like when Deacon was describing Dallas Carter on Friday Night Lights. Coach, they fast, they big, they're strong, and they're fast. You already said that. I know. You know, it's that type of deal. I get it.
Yeah.
But now, going forward from there, you did not look competitive. You did not look like you belonged in that fight at all. And so, you know, and the worst part of that game to me was there was a belief in NC State's talent. The idea was, you know, everything's going to be okay so long as there's not like major malfunctions anywhere. Well, I think the quarterback not being able to hit RPO and stick concepts, that's a major malfunction.
Yeah.
A defense that gets you in 3rd and 14 and allows you to get a 17-yard shovel pass rather, because you break 5 to 7 tackles somewhere in there, that's a major malfunction. So I look at that team and I say, you know, SMU, they lost because, I mean, of the reasons we talked about. Offensive line has been god-awful for them. But we knew coming in the question about them was offensive line. Wake Forest, who expected anything from them? Let's be very honest, right?
Sure.
Like, who expected anything from them? And, you know, Georgia Tech, they've exceeded expectations already. Nobody thought they were going to be ranked at any point in time this year. So they've exceeded what they were supposed to be.
Well, and I covered last week the reason why Georgia Tech was ranked was Florida State put them over. Late stage Ric Flair loses a match to put you over. That's what Florida State has done to both Georgia Tech and Boston College, who's now ranked.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, don't be surprised if Boston College takes a tumble. I will tell you this, as much as everybody says, oh, Ken, you're changing your opinion on these teams. One person I'm not changing my opinion on, Bill O'Brien, but that's neither here nor there. The reality is very simple. NC State has to be your biggest loser. They had the widest margin of loss. They did it on national television, and they did not look like a serious operation. They had no offensive touchdowns. They had more fumbled snaps or exchanges than plays of 20-plus yards offensively. Wow. I mean, what did Tennessee do to make you do that? That was just flat out mid-performing. You can't win against Western Carolina. You can't win against Louisiana Tech. You can't win against Locked On ACC God Squad doing that. So, you know, I'm just saying, me and Jarvis still got a little bit of something in us in terms of stopping the run in the middle. And Lord knows what we saw, they ain't got a damn thing for us. So, you know, objectively, NC State has to be your biggest loser out of the ACC this week.
Yeah, well, and speaking of NC State, you know, again, like they haven't lost a conference game. Neither has Virginia Tech. And obviously Virginia Tech, we were very disappointed in their week 1 performance against Vanderbilt. They did, you know, bounce back against Marshall. So, you know, I have to wonder, and again, neither of these teams have played in a conference game yet. Obviously haven't lost a conference game, but do we reevaluate our preseason takes on NC State and Virginia Tech, who we were both very high on? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Oh, and my friends, I am certainly not done with 5 Hour Energy. This is the season. Football season is when I enjoy the most 5 Hour Energy. I had a grape earlier today because I stay up late to watch games. I wake up early in the morning. Instead of crashing into the wall, 5 Hour Energy helps me hurdle right over it, my friends. Guys, with 0 sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore, like watermelon, tropical burst, grape that I had earlier today, berry. There's a flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, it's the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid till September 30th on one order, cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Thank you for making this brand new episode of Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. If you're watching us on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe. If you listen to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. All right, so obviously the pack got boat raced by Tennessee. You just talked about it. Not a conference game, of course, but it definitely kind of gives you a look in the mirror as to maybe some of the issues on that football team. And Virginia Tech, they showed plenty of issues in their week 1 loss at Vanderbilt when they were 2 touchdown favorites to get it done there. So are these teams still contenders, Kenton? And keeping in mind, again, I've said it 100 times, they have not lost an ACC game yet, but do we hold them in as high regard? Because, both you and I had the Pack and the Hokies in our top 5s somewhere. I mean, a little higher than others, but are they still contenders in the conference?
What I have seen, Dono, mathematically, yes.
Yeah,
mathematically, both of these teams are still contenders. The product that I saw put on the field, oh, I'm sorry, I can't say that word on here. No, they're not. You have one team that could not effectively run the ball on a squad that had 20 less scholarship players than them until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then you have another team who we all believed their quarterback was going to take the next step. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be phenomenal this year. Struggles to get past read 1 against Vandy. If it's not on a baseball diamond, there's no reason to ever lose to Vanderbilt. There's no reason. I'll give you a basketball, too. They have their moments. I'm joking. Basketball's terrible at Vanderbilt. They're bad over there. They're bad.
I don't pay attention to Vanderbilt basketball.
They just fired Jerry Stackhouse, I'm pretty sure, because he was terrible over there. No. There's no reason to lose to Vanderbilt in their unfinished home. When somebody who talks about your team, I forget the gentleman's name, but the young man from Locked On Vandy whose show we did a crossover with, Corey Burton said, and I quote, "The atmosphere is going to be weird." What do you mean? You can't lose to a weird environment.
There were more cranes. There were more cranes than fans.
And anytime I hear weird, I think really bad. When Kendrick said Baca's got a weird case, he didn't mean it because his case was increasingly something that we respect. It meant something very bad that everybody looks at and goes, ew, that's gross. If the environment is going to be weird, you should be able to go down there into their home, take over, and leave. But you didn't. So both of these teams. Oh, and by the way, everybody who told me I was overblowing concerns about them stopping a run and whatnot, and they'll be better against the run. How'd that work out? How'd that go? So neither of these teams are serious contenders on the field, but mathematically they could prove me wrong. And I will say this, in the same vein that I talked about not being fully on board for Kyle McCord or fully on board for Bill O'Brien or fully on board for a lot of these teams, I'm like, I'm a little skeptical. I'm also saying the same thing in terms of I'm not ready to fully write these teams off either. I believe that both are much worse than I thought they were, but the ACC as a whole doesn't look super hot right now. So, I'm looking around and I'm saying, I guess you could still find your way to where most people believed you'd be. It just won't be as pretty as we thought.
Yeah, no, well said. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. And what's funny, Kenton, I want to say one more thing before we run. Because
talk to me.
We took a lot of heat yesterday in the comments for doing a segment on Notre Dame. People who talk more about Syracuse. You talked about the Syracuse fans mobilizing. Don't talk about Notre Dame. Well, listen, I know Notre Dame may not be a conference member in football, but they are a member of the ACC, a member of the ACC in every other sport. They are a voting member inside the conference. And when they suffer a historic loss like the one that they suffered, you can forgive us. We felt like we had to talk about it.
Exactly. And I'm never going to be ashamed about talking about a top 5 team who is, in fact, a partial member of our conference embarrassing themselves in this moment. You know, they say Riley Leonard loves the ACC so much, he's trying to bring Notre Dame down to an ACC football team level to make them come on and join. So, you know, Riley, we appreciate your contributions, but you don't got to do that. You don't got to. You go ahead and play like a champion today, as they say up there in
You
Old
can take
South
the
Beach.
player out of the ACC. You can't take the ACC out of the player.
Absolutely.
Well, we will talk to everyone again next time on another episode of Locked On ACC, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.